It's time to talk, my friend, about this beautiful cover and all the amazing chisme we have inside. Obviously, I'm Kimmy B from the Soflo Morning Show on the New Hits 97.3 here in Miami. So it is fantastic to have a Miami boy on the Zoom screen. Obviously, the one and only Perez Hilton, aka Mr. Mario. But we'll leave it at Perez. How are you doing, first of all, aside from being sleepy?
I am not sleepy. I'm exhausted. My body is falling apart. And on top of everything that I've got going on, which is work, and my normal day is super busy, promoting my memoir, and not just doing interviews, but also promoting it across social media, which also takes a lot of time. On top of all of that, I've got 3 young children that are doing remote learning from home, and that's driving me crazy.
Well, you know what? You might be the most relatable man on the planet right now, especially to, a lot of our amazing working women out there who constantly have all the balls in the air. You know what I mean? And can we talk for a second about social media? I think people that don't understand it, that don't have to use it as a part of their everyday life for work, think it's frivolous fun, right? It is exhausting, right?
Yeah, I mean, because it's not just about one platform. If you do that, then you're being very myopic. You have to view yourself as a brand or an entity, and you have to be everywhere and do everything. So I am on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, and it's promoting the book everywhere. And it's not just even uploading the content, then you also have to engage. You have to like comments, you have to respond to comments on every platform. And it's me doing it. I don't have a team that's doing this for me. It's me. But you know what? I'm not complaining.
No.
Let me just set the record straight. I am so grateful and blessed to chat with you right now. That 16 years in my career, people care still enough to spend their time talking to me, that people care enough to buy the book. Because, I had been asked to write a memoir before this one, and I had always said no for many reasons. But the biggest one was that I viewed it like if the book did not do well, it would be a reflection on me. So it was scary and risky to expose myself that way. I didn't want to be perceived as a flop. But my wonderful co-writers on this really did a great job of convincing me that the time was right. And it sure is. I mean, my heyday, as you might call it, the peak Perez era, that is now nostalgic. The early 2000s is a throwback. Perez Hilton just came out with her documentary. I was on this big special on 2020 on ABC, also talking about that era. I think given what's going on in this country and in the world, I could not have asked for a better time to release my book, because people want and need a distraction. They want and need an escape, something that is just frivolous, lighthearted, but also, very relatable. I think especially being from Miami, if you're the child of immigrants, if you're somebody who grew up during the 80s or 90s in Miami, if you're somebody who grew up fat like I did, if you're somebody who grew up gay and closeted, if you want to be a social media star, or if you want to start your own business, an entrepreneur, there's so much here that appeals to so many people. And of course, all the celebrity stories, the chisme, as you say.
Yes.
So it's a little something for everybody.
It is,
for you, for your mom, for your grandma.
Seriously, which is very Latino, right? Because as you talk in the very beginning of the book, part of your love for this, for the gossip, which in some cultures, as in the Latin community, isn't really a negative.
No.
We just love to share information. It's what the table talk is all about. It's one of those situations where I feel like now it's almost more fun to read about stories, like the stories in my life in Scandal, that have happened, and we know how they turned out for people, right? Like we know that people kind of made it through to some degree, as opposed to now when you're talking about it in the middle of a global pandemic. First of all, as somebody who does this for a living, thank you for giving me content, because I honestly would not have the balls, I would not have the cojones to say 98% of the things that you put down on paper. So I appreciate it, because you give me things to talk about and then somebody else to put it on. Like, well, it was pathetic, girl. It was Perez put this out there, so we are just, he's our go-to. But I feel like it's one of those situations where it was difficult at the height of the pandemic to find things to talk about, because people were hunkered down in their houses. They weren't giving us the pictures. There wasn't really a whole lot of drama going on. Now we have a bunch of secret babies that are popping out because people have been on lockdown and been able to hide their baby bellies from the paparazzi. So that's fun. But it was kind of like, you realize like, ooh, when it's all shut down, what do we talk about? So when you get to pick up a book like this and you're like, oh, I remember that, or oh my goodness, or oh, Madonna, or, it starts off with a Lady Gaga. You have a little quip in there in the prologue about Lady Gaga. And the irony is, one of my co-hosts from the morning show, that was the first thing, he saw the book today and he was like, are you talking to Perez? And I was like, yeah, and he's like our chisme guy. And he was like, I wonder if he'll tell you about Gaga and the fallout and Demi and whatever. It was like literally the first thing. The very first page, I was like, that's what he starts with.
Well, kind of to what you said, not everybody, as they get older, matures. I'm sure we know a lot of people in their 40s and 50s that still act like they're in their 20s or teenagers.
Every housewife, I should say.
Yeah.
We get to watch them on they have an entire network dedicated to it.
Yeah, but I personally, while I'm still local and I still love to be silly, I behave differently, and I also view the world differently, and I view the past differently. I've had unfortunate situations happen with people that I thought were my friends, but I do believe time is a healer. And I look back at that happened with Lady Gaga or with anybody else through a lens of compassion, understanding. Yes, what they did to me was crappy, but she was going through a lot. She was dealing with alcohol and drugs and being the most famous pop star on the planet. That happened very quickly. She didn't have a decade or 2 decades, or even Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift's rise was exceptional, but she had more time to adjust to being a superstar. With Gaga, it happened much quicker. And her whole world, everybody's now yes people and this and that. And it was a lot. So I had let go of hurt and bitterness and resentment. And now I'm wearing this Lady Gaga t-shirt. Yes! And I look back at that era and our friendship, whether it was real or not, because I was hurt for a long time and I thought it was all fake and she was just using me, because when I befriended her, she was a nobody. Nobody had heard of her. Her music had not been released. And she repeatedly said in interviews and to me and to her label that she would not have happened if it wasn't for me. Because in 2008, when she launched, I was doing in the music world what TikTok is doing now. I was really launching artists because I was passionate about music. And it was something that I just did organically. And I was her biggest cheerleader. But I'm just proud. My feeling now is just pride that I saw something in her before anybody else did, for the most part. I mean, clearly the people at her label that had discovered her also saw that. But I was very right, and I'm looking in this direction because I have this platinum plaque that she sent me in my bedroom. Aww. And I'm surrounded by platinum plaques. Over there, we've got the Jonas Brothers. Over there, we've got Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift.
I love it.
I've got my, that one's darker, but.
Because the light.
Yeah, the light. I've got my Adele and Amy Winehouse platinum plaques. And these are my most prized possessions. That's why they're in my bedroom. So I look at them all the time.
I love that.
It's crazy.
First of all, my program directors would be jealous. You've got as many plaques as they have, and this is what they do. That's incredible. I'm dropping things. I have to ask you though, with that, sometimes, like you said, it's all a journey, right? And we have to lose people oftentimes, or we have to go through things. And I think especially in this industry, when it's so visible and everything that happens, and it's kind of, this is the space that you cornered and owned, and it's how you made your name. What is that like when you become the story? You know what I mean? You're so used to telling the stories, and all of a sudden you become a part of that.
It was like being a drug addict and constantly being high all the time and jonesing for that next fix and needing it and being wilder and crazier and doing stupid stuff to get that fix and to get a reaction, to get people talking.
Yeah.
You know, I do sincerely, genuinely carry with me a lot of deep shame and regret for a lot of the things that I did and the way that I behaved. If I could go back in time and do things differently, I would, for many reasons. First and foremost, it's the right thing to do. It sucks and it pains me to know that because I was so detached from it all back in the day. I drank the Kool-Aid. I thought my ish didn't stink. And I would tell my brain all sorts of things to justify my behavior. I would say, well, I don't care if people don't like me because it's not the real me. It's this character. It's Perez Hilton and nobody knows the real me behind the character. And I would also say, you know, if celebrities don't like what I'm writing, they shouldn't read it. If they don't like what I'm tweeting, they should just ignore me and blah, blah, blah. But that was dumb and young. And when you are young, everybody thinks that they are the center of the universe. And hopefully, as you get older, you realize, no, your words and actions matter. Your selfishness could really hurt other people. And it's not just about me, what you want. You have to be mindful and considerate of others. And I do try to do that now. And I think I do. And the other major reason why I swear on my father's life, who is dead, may he rest in peace, that I would go back in time and do things differently is that for selfish reasons. Selfish reasons. I still am suffering and have to pay the price of mistakes of my past. And I know, and this is the bitter pill to swallow, that in the future, my children will probably be discriminated against and have this bad thing happen or that bad thing happen because I am their father. Having said that, I'm going to teach my kids to, you know, bounce back. You get pushed down, you got to get back up again. And yeah, sure, it's not going to be all roses being Perez Hilton's children, but I'm a freaking great father and I'm giving them the best life possible. I'm equipping my children with knowledge, with the language of Spanish, that we only speak Spanish at home, with the language of instruments. My kids play piano. My son's now learning violin as well. They play sports. None of these things that I did growing up. So hopefully they'll be much more well-rounded and superstar, just humans.
I love the fact that you're bringing up the music, because I know in the very beginning of your book, I'm about halfway through. I know you're talking about, you know, wanting to play piano and your parents who are Cuban immigrants, you know, really being like, no, that's something girls do. And then putting you in judo and you being like, not for me, honey. And I bring that up because it's something that we talk about. And having worked in radio for a long time and having been in Miami and having come from the Northeast and, you know, loving my LGBTQIA family and being an ally, you know, it's something that we try to talk about a lot on the SoFlo Morning Show and at the New Hits 97.3, you know, because I think sometimes people take for granted these strides that we've made as far as the different movements are concerned. And I think if 2020 has brought anything to light, it's the fact that we are a far cry from true equality and justice for all. But the Latin community, as diverse and as full of love and life and music as they are, is one of those communities that harbors a lot of bigotry towards the LGBTQ, you know, IA plus community. So is the Caribbean community, so is the Black community, you know, and it's one of those things that you see, it's so prevalent in Miami where, you know, the gay community is such a huge part of everything amazing about South Florida, right? When you think about culture, there's probably two groups that you really attribute to why Miami is as fabulous as it is. And it's the Latin community and then it's the gay community, right? And you bring them together and you have this you have Miami. But the fact that it's so hard for young, especially Latino men, to be able to share who they truly are with the older people in their families is really heartbreaking. So as you have this platform, you know, do you have a special spot in your heart? Because I mean, you've obviously had your own controversies with outing, you know, that's been a part of that Perez Hilton journey. And they say hurt people and people who struggled. And I think sometimes we think just kicking down the door, like it may hurt you now, but I'm making it easier for you in the long run. I just did the hard part. Do you have a special place, and do you try to make it a point to communicate with individuals that you feel could be going through what you went through as a young Latino man?
I think that just me existing is a revolutionary act. Me being successful, me having 3 children on my own. And I think when you love somebody, like I love Miami, I don't even know why I'm gonna get emotional. Maybe because I'm really tired, but I'm really tired, so I'm a little emotional.
I get the same exact way.
I hope people don't misconstrue me now, but there's a reason I left Miami when I was 18. I never felt accepted there. I never felt understood. I never felt celebrated. And it's not even just me. It's not even gay men, or it's also hard for gay women or bisexual women, or even you, I would imagine. If you grew up in Miami and you told your parents, I want to be a DJ, they'd be like, no. At least my experience was all of the families and all of the parents wanted their children to be cookie cutter children. They wanted their kids to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a politician. If you weren't any of those things, you were weird. Like, you know, oh, you want to be a sculptor? A sculptor, like what? No. Mi hijo is not going to be a sculptor. What are you talking about? That's not a safe job. I think because so many of them had to start from nothing and left this other place.
Their
and
things,
and it's fear that controls their thinking. It's fear, and it's also not understanding. And my mom, I think it was fear and not understanding. It was fear, you know, that I would get AIDS and die. Yeah. It was fear that she wouldn't have any grandchildren. And thankfully, I'm healthy. I don't have AIDS or HIV. And she's got now 3 grandchildren, well, 4, including my sister. But I have so much love in my heart for Miami because I know that I would not be as successful as I have been in life if it weren't for my experience growing up in Miami. If it weren't for that struggle that my parents ingrained in me from the very beginning, from as early as I could remember. My parents always told me, you have to work hard, and not just hard, harder than everybody else. And the bar was so high for me. I'm probably going to do the same for my kids. Some people might criticize me for this. The bar was so, well, not really my kids, because my kids go to a school, they don't get grades, at least yet. Maybe when they're in middle school, they might get grades at a different school. They're elementary school, this one doesn't give them grades. But my parents always expected me to get straight A's. If I ever did not get an A, they were very disappointed in me. And thankfully, I got straight A's for the most part.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you went to NYU on a full ride. So, I mean, we know what kind of grades you got. It was ironic when you were writing about the school, you didn't name the school that you went to, the high school, but I was like, I bet you went to the Bloom. I was like, yeah, that's very similar. So yeah, I 100% agree. And you're right when you say just being able, I think, to see somebody who came from immigrant parents who had everything and had to walk away from that in order to provide a free, better life, right? Like that's what happened to so many of our amazing Cuban brothers and sisters. They had to leave behind absolutely everything and come here because it was about to A, be taken away from them, and B, this was the place that was hopefully going to give them the opportunity to not only get it back, but hopefully make more of themselves. And I think you are truly a testament to that. I'm sure your mother and your dear father, rest in peace, never saw it come in the way that it came, honey.
No.
But You are clearly here and here to stay. Again, you have My Life in Scandal that comes out on October 6th. It's exciting because you are very no holds bar. And in the first, like I said, in the prologue alone, you're talking about getting punched in the face. You got will.i.am, you got Lady Gaga in the first 14 sentences. So I was like, oh, he is about it in this book. After is the fat kid. So
well, I want to thank you for all of the things that we've talked about, and I think that I was reading a very fascinating article last night about how 2020 has just changed the rules for so many people. There are some influencers that wanted to not talk about current events this year. And they were losing followers by not talking about it. They were afraid to get political. But I don't think that talking about current events has to be a political act. I just think it's something that should, in theory, be something that unites us, talking about equal rights, talking about justice for all. And specifically to Miami, well, we've talked today about hopefully being more understanding of your children or relatives who are different, who are gay. I think it's also really important, and I'll leave you guys on this note. I'm not going to view it as a bummer. It's an important conversation that needs to continue. As somebody from Miami and somebody whose whole family, for the most part, is still in Miami, it pains me to know that there are so many racist Cubans, so many racist Latinos. And they view themselves as white. And I am white, and I happen to be a white Latino, but I also believe that everybody deserves equal treatment. I believe that there is systemic racism and there is white privilege, even for white Latinos, and that we need to be an ally and not, and that's it. We need to be an ally, and we need to listen and not get defensive.
100%.
Listening to Latinos without getting defensive is really hard.
That's almost like an oxymoron, or like, they kind of come hand in hand. But to your point, you're 100% right. And I thank every artist that comes by our station, and I thank you for using your platform. As much fun as you give us, and like I said, you give us the chisme and all of that, when you're willing to use your platform, because it's not always an easy decision to make. And for a long time, labels, management, people who pulled the strings would beg people like you that had huge platforms to not go that way. Please keep it easy, because you're going to alienate, your fans. Not everybody feels the same way. And I think that there's a way of doing it in this space, because that's very true of Top 40, especially. I came from an urban radio background where you're expected to use your platform in a certain way. And then coming over to the Top 40 side, where you start to realize, oh, not everybody thinks the same, right? You have to be a little more ginger with it. But I look at it as we really have the opportunity to change minds and hearts. Present our perspective in a way where they don't immediately shut you down. Do you know what I mean? And I think that that's the important part of, like you said, listening, having the dialogue. We've got to come back to a place where we will at least be willing to hear each other out about things. Right now, it's like, as soon as you say Black Lives Matter, somebody says, you're anti-police. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's not what I said. And that's the problem. So as soon as we can come back to the middle and really start to dialogue with one another, but it starts with people like you who have, like you said, the grandmas and the aunties, and then the young people that are all coming to the same space to get that information. You have everybody's ear.
And when people listen to your show, or when they have a family member who comes out or marries a Black person or whatever it might be, it changes 100%. History. It changes hearts and minds. I got to give a shout out to my former representative there in Miami, Ileana Ros Leitonen, whose child came out as transgender. And most Republicans do not support trans rights. She has a trans child now, so before she left Congress, she did. Her experience changed her view on that issue. So I am cautiously optimistic but realistic. I may not see all the change I like in my lifetime, but what I tell my kids, just because something is hard doesn't mean it means you have to just try harder and you have to just keep at it.
Okay, so
So
I know you have to go.
thank you guys.
Give me a favorite part of this book that we can tell our morning show family members to look out for. Like, if you had to pick one part of this book that you love the most, and I know it's hard because this is like your fourth baby, I'm sure.
My favorite, probably like, I think people would probably expect all the Lady Gaga stuff, but I had a wonderful and salacious night with John Mayer once that ends up in the book. So be on the lookout for that.
What chapter? What chapter, Perez? What chapter?
I don't remember the number of the chapter, but it's in there.
I can't wait. Well, like I said, it's a very easy read. I got through half of it literally from the time my show ended today to before we came in here to do this interview. So I'm so proud of you and I'm excited. Oh. And let me tell you something. You are nothing like what I would have expected you to be like, especially not 5 or 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, as far as that growth process and the journey that you feel like you've been on, I think it is definitely shining through. Your 3 babies are very lucky to have you as a daddy. And Miami is very lucky to be able to call you ours. So thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you. All right. Have a good one.
October 6th, My Life in Scandal. Get some. Damn it. Get some.
I need to. Thank you. Bye.